What I've learned in the NBA is there's no secret recipe. The best players just work the hardest. There's no surprise. There's no way around it. You gotta go through it.
To the Pacers, they lead it 6-4. Halliburton goes inside and count it. Brown fires it ahead. Halliburton pounds it down. Halliburton with the Pacers down 2. Here's a 3. Got him!
In my recent memory, there has never been a young point guard bursted onto the scene as electric as Tyrese Halliburton. Back-to-back zero-turnover games, leading the league in assists, career nights after career nights, the 23-year-old All-Star turned into a record-breaking machine, and it seems there's no stopping him.
Anytime he plays, the Pacers feel pretty good about their chances of being in a game or winning it.
Halliburton, here's a deep 3, and he got it. It's a 5-point game. Halliburton for 3. Pacers in front.
He kinda reminds me of a mix of Magic Johnson and Chris Paul, except he's like a modernized version of the two, well adjusted to the elevated pace of today's game. Even with the amount of extraordinary talent at the point guard position, Halliburton stood out among his peers. An argument could be made that he is one of the best point guard right now, because so far this season, he has been doing things nobody has seen before, shattering NBA records left and right, putting on historical performances one after another.
Halliburton is just like the real deal. He's, probably a top 10 shooter in the league, easily a top 5 passer in the league.
Easily.
That's a good place to start for a fast offense.
He's special. What else can I say?
However, Halliburton's journey to superstardom wasn't exactly all sunshine and roses. Throughout his career, he's been overlooked, underappreciated, and even straight up disrespected. Nevertheless, he remained unfazed. Time and time again, the young kid from Wisconsin has exceeded all expectations and proving all his skeptics wrong and making them look foolish. It's amazing to watch how easy Halliburton made the game for everyone else. Some of the G League centers the Pacers were playing at the time were casually finishing with 20 and 10. Even veteran players like Hield and Turner were playing the best basketball of their lives, looking like the most realized versions of themselves. Therefore, Indiana became one of the most productive offenses in the NBA today, scoring 118 points per 100 possessions this season. The secret recipe to Indy's explosive offense is the way Halliburton pushes the pace of the basketball. Passes were fired out faster, 3 balls were going up earlier, and the players were sprinting up and down the floor quicker than ever. Before the arrival of Halliburton, the previously constructed Pacers team was dead last in the NBA in terms of transition dunks. Then the young point guard walked in the door and rejuvenated the entire offense. So far this season, they are operating at a pace of 102.7 combined possessions per game, second most in the NBA. The key to their success has been Halliburton's willingness to throw the ball ahead and empower his teammates as creators. Unlike many of the high-power offense in this league, Indiana doesn't run a heliocentric scheme around the ball-dominant guard. In contrast, they ran this free-flowing style play reminiscent of the 7-second or less offense ran by Steve Nash. Whenever there's a pass to be made, Halliburton sends it. He is looking for every opportunity to give the ball up early. It helps set a template of a fast, reactive, and spontaneous attack with dynamic ball movement. This sort of off-the-script type of plays make every player a live threat. A lot of the times, opposing defenses never have a chance to recover. One of the biggest virtues of Halliburton's game is the empathy he possesses on the floor. My job is to make sure everybody eats, Halliburton explains. If Miles is sending 10 ball screens in a row, I'm gonna get him a touch. If I see Ben hasn't touched him in a little bit, I'm gonna run a set for him, get him involved. Unlike other star players, Halliburton's mentality is about putting the needs of others in front of himself. And that's something that Tyrese realizes and many don't. He is the rare kind of player who understands the positive impact of trust and how it reciprocates. That's why other players enjoy playing with him. As a player, the 23-year All-Star gets even better again this year, and it's in the least expected way possible. The biggest knock on him entering the league was his supposed inability to create his own shot and lead a powerful offense. He answered those questions by pumping his usage rate up to the high 20s with the help of his improved outside shot making. This season, Halliburton's unconventional shoulder-mounted jumper has been his most reliable weapon. He attempted an average of 6.4 pull-up threes per game, second only to Luka Doncic. Besides, he has made 38.8% of them, the highest among high-volume scorers. He took that next step as a scorer while both reducing turnovers and increasing efficiency. The NBA tracks a stat called Player Efficiency Rating, PER, which is derived from very complex calculations to measure individual play efficiency relative to the rest of the league. Halliburton's PER of 24.98 puts him 7th on the leaderboard, above many of the big names like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James. When you combine the league-leading playmaking with efficient 20-point-per-game scoring, as Halliburton consistently managed to do, that's the solid making of a superstar. February 8, 2022 was a pivotal day for Tyrese Halliburton in a way nobody saw coming. Within a couple hours, he went from the franchise cornerstone to a part of the deal that saw Domantas Sabonis join Sacramento. For Halliburton, it was difficult to brush off his immediate resentment towards the entire situation, because he was committed to the franchise and viewed himself as an integral part of King's long-term future. It's such a reality check, because you think you're on top of the world, Halliburton said. It's the first time I felt unwanted. I was just angry at the world. I was angry at everybody. His frustration towards the whole situation was in fact well justified. The Kings have been informing the teams in the marketplace that they want to build around De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. But again, this is the same franchise that said it would sign DeMarcus Cousins to a Supermax extension, then dealt him just a couple weeks later. They are not exactly known for keeping their words. This trade comes as a surprise to many. Tyrese wasn't the only one stunned. The rest of the NBA were just as shocked to see the Kings gave up perhaps their best young player. At just 21 years old, he was averaging 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists per game, while shooting 41% from 3. The entire NBA world questioned the Kings trading a second-year rookie player so soon, especially when he was widely thought of as a centerpiece on the rebuilding Kings team. In fact, according to Woj on ESPN, nobody knew Tyrese was even available. Truth be told, Sacramento had been shopping him around for a while. At the 2022 trade deadline, the Philadelphia 76ers were patiently waiting for the best return on a potential Ben Simmons trade. The Kings happened to be one of the teams in conversation with Philly, and they were willing to offer the second-year Tyrese Halliburton in the Ben Simmons trade. In hindsight, it was not only a ridiculous price to pay for a disgruntled Ben Simmons, it also showed how little they know the player they have in Halliburton. When they decided to trade the future star point guard, Sacramento was in the middle of another disappointing season where they fired head coach Luke Walton after a 6-11 start. The Kings were sitting at a record of 20-35, placing them 13th in the Western Conference. At the time, it felt like another impatient and short-sighted move by the Kings in a desperate attempt for a late playoff push. Even before sending Halliburton to Indiana, the Kings were nowhere near the position of postseason contention. After years filled with coaching changes, front office shakeups, and draft day catastrophes, The franchise struggled to reach the playoffs since 2006. Not long ago, Sacramento still held the record for the longest postseason drought of any team in all major US sports. Tyrese Haliburton falling to them at number 12 was one of the best things that has happened to the franchise in a long time. They should be thanking the basketball god for landing such a steal in the draft. But in reality, they were doing him a huge disservice by plugging him into a crowded backcourt of Bogdanovich, Hield, and De'Aaron Fox. He had to play out of position the majority of the time, even though his versatility has allowed him to fit into lineups with other ball-dominant guards. For such an elite ball handler like Haliburton, taking the ball off his hands was still detrimental to him as a young player. After all, the trade to Indiana was probably one of the best things that could happen for his career. They allowed the Wisconsin native to finally be himself, a floor general who orchestrates the entire offense, and he continued to blossom in Indy, fulfilling full potential he didn't have a chance to show in Sacramento. Having all of the knockout stage games on national television, the NBA season tournament provided the perfect opportunity for Haliburton to put the entire basketball world on notice. And spoiler alert, he did. Under national spotlight, the Haliburton-led Pacers team went on an epic run. Initially, Indiana was scheduled to only one national televised game this entire season. But Haliburton decided to put himself on national TV 3 more times by leading an otherwise under-the-radar Pacers team to the tournament final. They were the prime example of an underdog story in this tournament. According to ESPN Bet, they had a 40-1 odds to come up on top and bring back the trophy. Nobody believed in them except Tyrese Haliburton and his teammates. Indiana Pacers absolutely demolished the group stage competition. Tyrese Haliburton conducted an offensive masterclass by putting up 16 and 15 assists against Cleveland and Philadelphia respectively. His domination then continued onto the knockout stage. Haliburton delivered back-to-back dazzling performances in both the quarterfinals and the semifinals. He combined for 53 points and 28 assists without committing a single turnover in the 2 knockout games. No one else in the NBA has posted at least 25 points, 15 assists, and 0 turnovers more than once in a season. Haliburton did it in back-to-back games. In their win over the Celtics, Haliburton annihilated Boston by posting his first career triple-double while enduring a respiratory infection. He then followed that by torching the drop coverage of the Bucks and hit a game-winning 3 while taunting Lillard with a Dame Time celebration. It wasn't a storybook ending after all, as he lost in a championship game against the Lakers. Nonetheless, Haliburton already helped the small market Pacers team receive national attention while launching himself into superstardom in the process. It was Haliburton's first time playing in actual meaningful games with real stakes, and he wasn't fazed. The 23-year-old was on fire from the moment the tournament tipped off in November. In 7 tournament games, he averaged 26.7 points on 52.4% shooting from the field and had 13.3 assists on top of it. And the Pacers can walk away from this tournament in the joyful realization that they have a bona fide franchise player if they didn't already know. As much as the in-season tournament helped Haliburton, this latest experiment by Adam Silver needed help from him as well. Placing spotlights on a young breakout star like Tyrese helped generate headlines and made the national audience invested in the early stage of NBA regular season, which has been increasingly difficult to do. By all measures, this new concept has been a huge success for the NBA. This narrative-driven league needed an underdog like Haliburton, and he was indeed the protagonist they were looking for. Pacers legend Reggie Miller said it best: "We're witnessing a superstar in the making." Haliburton had always had a chip on his shoulder. From being a no-star recruit in high school to sliding to number 12 pick in the draft, there has always been doubts over his name. For the most part of his life, he was largely ignored and very much underappreciated. For Haliburton, the projection of him before the draft is an excellent role player with a 3-and-D archetype. Very few scouts put him above a future star player, let alone into their franchise player bracket. The reason for that stemmed from pure eye test and statistical modeling. A perfect example of a comparison is James Wiseman. In hindsight, it's criminal for the Warriors to select Wiseman over Haliburton at the 2nd overall pick. However, at the time, it's difficult to imagine a team picking Haliburton that high in the draft. With Wiseman, you are guaranteed a prototypical center with the most impressive physical profile in that draft. Tyrese Haliburton, in contrast, is a point guard listed at 180 pounds with a narrowly built frame, who also has a funky-looking jump shot. From a pure eye test perspective, it's already not doing Haliburton any favors, but wait until you look at his stats at Iowa State. As an 18-year-old freshman, Haliburton only managed to have a usage rate of 9.8 on an only moderately talented team. To put that into context, that's lower than Matisse Thybulle of this year at 10.0, who is known for being a non-threat on offense. As a sophomore, Haliburton's usage rose to an average-ish 20.4, which is still relatively low, given that he's clearly the best player on that team. It caused major concern about his ability to take on a bigger scoring role against superior competition in the NBA. By the way, it's not as if Haliburton's ability was unknown. Sports Reference tracks a stat called Box Plus Minus, or BPM, which is an estimate of players' per possession impact based on their box score numbers. Only 122 Division I players had at least one season with BPM of 11 or higher. Haliburton was one of them, along with many established NBA All-Stars, such as Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, just to name a few. Haliburton's college resume, in essence, was an oddly shaped package that came with both efficient scoring and minuscule volume. And rarely does a player with that sort of profile in college become a star in the NBA. As a result, it garnered him some unfavorable reviews on his future projections in the NBA. One scouting report even wrote, he projects as more of a glue guy starter rather than a star player, and probably won't be a first or second option offensively. Obviously, knowing what we know now, there's one crucial fact that I didn't take into account. A lot of the things that Haliburton does well on the court don't show up on the stat sheet. Haliburton himself said it better than I could. Talent evaluation is hard, because you can't evaluate heart. He says he doesn't dwell on the fact that 11 different teams passed on him in the draft, but he somehow was able to name every player drafted before him and their respective team. He still remembers every detail, including every switch and dribble of his pre-draft workouts with the Warriors, the Pistons, and the Bulls. He even recalls the fact that he was listed at number 4 on ESPN's big board, and the camera kept panning to his face every time he got passed on by another team. There was nothing he could do about it but staring at himself in the screen, wishing for avoiding any further embarrassment. It wasn't a huge shock to him after all, because he's used to it. It has been the story of his life. When he was a teenager, he went largely unnoticed compared to players from Milwaukee and Chicago because he was from Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
I was a no-star in high school. Like, I know people say 3-star, but I was a no-star, so yeah, definitely I use everything that I can to give me a little bit of an edge for sure.
Haliburton wasn't lying to you. He was heavily under-recruited as the former 172nd ranked high school prospect from Wisconsin. In 2017, he committed to Iowa State because it was his only high major offer. Ultimately, all the unfair misjudgment Haliburton experienced throughout his career or just extra motivation for him to achieve further greatness. That's my basketball life, he said. That's okay. It's more fun this way.
Did that discourage you? You feel like you were still an NBA product at that point?
No. NBA was never a thought.
It was never
it was like,
in
it's like,
question?
of course that's what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
like to even think about it wasn't a thing for me. And like 3-star, oh, that drives me crazy because they threw that in when I got to college. You know what I mean? Because I got to college, I was no star. I was supposed to redshirt. Then I ended up starting game 2, and then next thing I know, middle of the game, they're like, "It's a 3-star point guard." I'm like, 3? What are y'all talking about? I didn't have no stars.
I get that from.
ESPN had my name spelled wrong for the first like 2 weeks of the season. I swear to God, I
crazy.
wish I was playing. I used to go on ESPN and it would say Tyrese Halliburton with 2 L. I'm like, who is he? I got no idea who he is.